Hi, and as you've already picked up by now, as we've gotten a little bit into our law class, things move really quickly, and there's a lot of material to cover. Sometimes there's reading going on that we don't spend that much time talking about in our either discussion group or in our Illuminate sessions. So as we move through these topics very quickly, I've tried to pick out a few of those issues that I think really require the most amount of dialogue, and students tend to benefit from pushing the gray areas a little bit more. However, if we get to one of those and move past it maybe a little bit too quickly for your taste, or you find that you have some questions, that's what the discussion board is there for as well. So feel free to start your own discussion topic if you have questions and throw it out there, and classmates hopefully will chime in. Don't just wait for me. I'll chime in as well, but if you have ideas, treat it like a classroom conversation, and I encourage you to dive in there and get some dialogue started. And that's much better than just sending me an email, because this way everybody can benefit from the dialogue and from my response as well. So we got a discussion coming up where I've asked you to talk about the most controversial thing that a teacher can safely talk about in a classroom setting. And the reason I phrase it this way, as I mentioned in the directions for the post, it's often much easier to just list the things that you can't talk about. We can look at law cases, and we can pull out those circumstances where teachers step too far and the courts try to pull that teacher back a little bit, or administrators reprimanded a teacher and the courts upheld that, which is more commonly the way it works out. But in this case, I want to try to push that gray area a little bit and try to think about, well, what are those things that teachers can talk about that may seem like they push up against what we consider the conversations that shouldn't take place in schools, but might still be considered okay by the courts, even if they're not always considered okay by administrators. And how does that differ? What's important about this, the context, the age of the students, the subject matter that's being taught about, any of those types of things that help us understand what's important when examining this on a case-by-case basis, so we can start to develop some understanding, maybe a set of rules that we can think about, guidelines that we can follow. So that's how we're kicking off our conversation. And then I also want to take some time to look ahead, because we're going to also be talking about fundamentals of church and state, and we're going to look at some history there. So we'll review the Establishment Clause and Jefferson's Wall of Separation letter, and as well as read some cases and other documents to help us understand, largely because this is one of the issues that generates the most conversation. So I want to come at this from multiple angles, and there'll be some repetition in the readings. I'll let you know that right up front. So just be prepared for that. We want to emphasize some of these things that come up often when dealing with issues of prayer or religious context in schooling. And some of it is very straightforward, and some of it is very murky in the law. So we'll explore that in readings, and then we'll talk about it in more when we actually get to talk face to face. With that in mind, we have the Illuminate session coming up this week, and if you haven't had a chance to play around with your camera and your audio and make sure that it works, now is the time to do that. And you can access that by going through either the hot links in the website that were in the pre-course checklist. There's a little 3 steps that you can go through to make sure that your software works, your camera's working. Also, I know that Blackboard was open to have access to Illuminate, and when you are accessing Illuminate, that's how you'll do it. You'll go into our course Blackboard site. That's one way to do it, and log in and then go to the session through that Blackboard site, or you can also do it by clicking on a hot link that I'll make available to you on the website. Just keep in mind that They are a little bit different. Either one's fine, but they'll look a little bit different depending on how you access it. So I usually encourage students to just go through the Blackboard site and log in that way, because I'll also be recording the session. It's only available to you through the Blackboard site, and so it's good to at least be familiar with it that way. That's really the only reason we use Blackboard in this class, is as a gateway to get into our Illuminate sessions and to see those recordings. So like I said, I encourage you to play with that. You want to try to avoid the technical difficulties early on, and make sure that when you're ready to sign in Thursday morning, that you're ready to just get right to work in the class, and you're not bogged down by having audio problems or video problems and the like. So that's what I want you to be working on. And then later this week, I'll also post a video blog where I spent some time talking about the upcoming assignments and grading, and answer some questions you might have about that. One last quick note. There was some confusion about some of the readings and what was assigned in the Lane book. And I had made a mistake in the syllabus, which I corrected. So I appreciate anytime you see something like that, please bring it to my attention. One of the things I've done to try to help with that, you'll notice that now on the main website, is I've put the title of the chapter along with the chapter number. And one of the main problems is that we have some students who are trying to work from the 3rd edition and some from the 4th, and they're different. The chapters don't line up the same. And I had some mistakes in the syllabus along those lines as well. So substantively, those chapters aren't very different. And chapter 3 in one book isn't the same chapter 3 in the other, but the chapter that talks about freedom of expression in one book is very, very similar to the freedom of expression chapter in the other book. It's just that chapter, or rather the 4th edition, adds new chapters and makes a few adjustments in some of the chapters. So anyway, I just wanted to talk about that, let you know that I'm putting the titles of the chapters along with the chapter numbers now on our current assignment part of the main website, so that you can see that, and hopefully just as a check, make sure that you're working on the right reading. If you have any questions about that or anything else, please let me know, and I'm looking forward to seeing your posts for this week's discussion online.